Hi there. In this screencast, we'll look at how Sage 50 handles security. So I'm not sure if anybody's noticed, but if you look down at the bottom right corner, we see sysadmin. So that's the user we're presently logged in as. So you can think of sysadmin as user 1 or the super user. We have all the rights, we have all of the abilities to do everything with the application, as well as create users and assign permissions to those users. So in order to add a password to this user, we just quickly go to setup, set up users, modify user, and then we can enter a password here. So I'm going to enter lowercase s, lowercase a, 2017. SA2017. And I'll enter that again. Lowercase s, lowercase a, 2017. And I always add an email and in case we need to recover that password. I'm just going to add my own email. And every time I create a user, I'll actually use my email for that user as well. So if they need to reset their password, an email will be sent to me so I can reset it for them. We can also reset in other methods as well. I'm going to leave all of the permissions stock. I'm not going to change anything for sysadmin, and I'm going to choose OK. And I'm going to choose close, and I'm going to close the application, open it again, and so we can see what it's like to log in as sysadmin. So I'll choose File, Exit. I'll open up Sage again. And choose the last company. There it is there. Okay. And now I have to enter sysadmin and lowercase s, lowercase a, 2017. SYS-ADMIN. Again, that's the name of user 1, super user, and SA2017. And now this is interesting here. Basically, if we open the company in multi-user mode, that means that multiple people can be working on the same data. So that is, if there was a transaction that was incorrect or something like that, and we had multiple bookkeepers in our company working on a network on the same file, they could all effectively edit one record. So and the system would basically let them know that that record was being worked on by more than one person. Otherwise, if they were working on multiple separate, distinct records, there'd be no effect whatsoever. So the result of that is some of the settings are unavailable in multi-user mode. So if you want full control of the entire system, make sure you're always in single user mode. So basically, if you're changing the interface or the way things work, you want to be in single user mode. So if you're doing stuff like that and you have multiple users on the same data, you probably want to wait till after hours and then switch to single user mode, and then you can make all of your changes. So for our purposes, we'll always be working in single user mode because we don't have more than one user working on this data at the same time. And I'll choose OK. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to ever check this in my situation for teaching purposes, because I want to be able to check the permissions that I grant to a particular user. So if you're doing some user manipulation, make sure you don't check that. So I'll choose OK. And the application opens as usual. So now I'm going to quickly add a user, and I'll grant them particular permissions. Now, one thing that's interesting about Sage 50 is if we grant a user particular permissions, you'll only see the modules that they have permission to access. So for example, if we have someone who's only handling our suppliers, and the items that we purchase from them, we could remove receivables, we could remove inventory, we could remove payroll, divisions. That's something we saw in level 1. You can remove that as well. Banking, basically everything that they don't have access to, they don't need to see, so it can lean out the interface quite a bit for them, so they can focus on the jobs that they need to do, as opposed to just being disallowed from doing things. This actually streamlines their workflow, which is actually a benefit to them. So basically, if there's something that people don't ever need to do, you should just remove it from the system, and this is how we do that. So we go to Setup, Set Up Users. When you do that, it asks for your password again. So basically, if you leave your system open and you go away for lunch or something like that, somebody can't create a user with all of the permissions and then log in and change stuff. They need to know your password. And I'll add a user. And my username is Albert. And the password is BERT, all lowercase, number 32. BERT 32. And I'm going to add my own email in case something happens to that user. Now this is where it gets interesting. So the permissions that we give to Albert will again lean out the interface. So I'm going to say accounts banking. I'm not going to allow them to change the accounts, but they can view and look at all of the reports, and they won't be able to enter anything for the general journal, but they can look at all of the general journal reports. Payables, I'm going to say they can't enter anything, but they can look up stuff, and they can't create any reports. Payments, so this user can make payments. And receivables, no reports for receivables, but they can enter, so we can accept payments. Sorry, we can't accept payments as receipts, but we can enter invoices from our customers. And personally, in real life, I would probably allow everyone to accept payments, but not necessarily make payments. And inventory services, so they can't change any inventory items, but they can view them, and they can look at all of the reports. So I'll just leave everything like that. They won't so basically, when we log in, we'll see that this user should not have the divisions module, and they will not have this time slips icon, or if it's there, it'll be faded out. And they won't be able to make any enter any receipts, and this payroll module will also be gone. Where are we? This payroll module will not be present. So I choose OK. I choose close. I'm going to shut down, open up again, and this time log in as Albert with the password BERT32. Now, Albert has no control over this user account except to change his password. And again, I'm just going to leave this at single user mode, but in real life, if you have multiple users, of course you want to use multi-user modes, except for if you need to do some system level modifications or change your users. Alright, so you notice there's no payroll. There's also no divisions because we didn't check that row. And for receivables, if we look at, remember that we unchecked the ability to generate reports. If we go to reports here, receivables, they're all grayed out. So that user is disallowed. Now in real life, sometimes it takes some back and forth. You'll turn off and on different permissions, different abilities that a user has with the application. And if they have too little, then you'll have to tweak those. And if they have too much, basically something is present that they don't need to be able to enter. Again, in the goal of streamlining their user interface, as much as limiting the permissions of someone we don't trust with a certain job, then we can tweak those items. Now we're logged in as Albert, so he can go to setup settings, or sorry, he can go to setup change passwords. So he has to enter his present password. So he has to know his password. Okay. And we're going to change it to BE32RT. Notice you can't change any of his permissions, only the sysadmin can. There we go. Now, if he forgets his password, he can always come to us. We can log in as sysadmin and then change it from there as well. I'm going to log out, log back in, and I'm going to remove Bert. Then I'm going to remove the password to remove the security for this company. So sometimes it takes a couple of tries. So I'll just exit here. We have to be in single user mode. And we have to remove all of the users to remove security. So I'll remove Albert. And I'll modify user. So in order to remove the password, notice it's white right now. What I have to do is just backspace a whole bunch of times and delete as well. So I'm just hitting that a bunch of times to make sure it's all clear. And then I remove the email. And I choose OK. Done with this. I exit and the security is removed. I no longer need to enter a password to log in. Sometimes you'll need to enter a password again. So if you just go back to setup users, modify user, and just remove that one more time, if that happens to you, then you should be good. Again, I'm just hitting backspace and delete a bunch of times. So that's security in a nutshell. One more thing about security, by the way. If you add a user and they enter some transactions, we have the ability to add a column for users to all of our reports, so we can actually see all of the transactions that a particular user entered. So we can double check the accuracy of their data entry, what have you. All right, thanks so much for watching.